Being a social worker is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'm really excited to start this platform and have a space to talk about it. Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome back. If you caught me in an old video, for those of you who are new, my name is Elizabeth. I'm a licensed master of social work in my state. A little bit of info on me. My background is actually in criminal justice. I have my bachelor's in CJ, and I was a police dispatcher for about 3 years. 2 while I was getting my undergrad, and one year I went full-time in between my bachelor's and my master's. Grad school, got my master's in social work. I am licensed with my state, and I'm currently working in a hospital as a social worker. I'm a case manager for a certain unit. I've been meaning to make a video about secondary trauma, compassion fatigue, what does it look like and how do we manage it? For those of you who haven't heard of secondary trauma, I will try to explain it. Secondary trauma can be either emotional or behavioral, as I understand it. Secondary trauma happens a lot in helping professions when you are hearing a traumatic event from the lips of the person who lived that trauma. When you are being empathetic towards that person and really listening to them and hearing them out and feeling those emotions with them as they're telling or recounting that trauma narrative, you can absorb some of those feelings and those emotions, and it can negatively impact us. So secondary trauma can lead to compassion fatigue, where you're just tired. You're tired. And it's not I'm so tired. I'm sick of helping people. I'm tired of helping people. It's just like an emotionally exhausting experience. So I just wanted to share today how I prevent compassion fatigue, but also how I manage it when it happens, because it does happen. So hopefully in sharing what works for me, you might find something you hadn't thought of before, you hadn't tried before. Maybe you'll try it. Hopefully it'll work for you. So I want to break this video down into 3 parts: before work, during work, and after work. That's the easiest way that makes sense in my mind. So let's try it out. I just made a whole TikTok/YouTube short about my slow, intentional mornings. Waking up with enough time, you don't feel rushed in the morning, you have time to get yourself together, maybe have a cup of coffee, take your vitamins, take your medicines, take care of yourself, because you've got to start your day off putting yourself first, or else you'll forget to do it later. You're not gonna have time to put yourself first at work. You're putting your client in front of you first. To go along with that, I think it's really important to make you feel good about you. For me, I do my makeup before work every morning. It makes me feel professional, put together. I feel very feminine, I feel very confident. It makes me feel ready for the day. When I drive to work, I listen to music that makes me feel good, because by the time I get to work, I'm gonna step out of that car and I'm gonna be my social work self. As soon as I step out of that car, I'm on hospital grounds, I'm my social work self. So number 2, category 2, what can we do for ourselves at work? A common mistake that I see a lot of working professionals make is a big detriment to yourself. They don't take their lunch break, or they heat their food up and go sit back at their computer and continue to work while they're eating. It's not a lunch break. That's not a moment for you to decompress. So I typically take my 30 minutes and just stay at the hospital, but I always make it intentional to take those 30 minutes. I step away from my computer, I step away from my office. The other thing that I can do for myself is to take a walk. While I'm at work, after my lunch break, when like the 3 p.m., what do they call it? The 3 p.m. crash starts to hit, I get up from my desk. I walk out of my unit. 10 minutes or so, that's all I need. I just need to breathe, walk, I'll count my steps, whatever I need to do to take my mind off of what's going on at work, recenter myself, breathe. How many times can I say it? And then I'll return to my desk and get back into work mode. So section 3, what do I do when I come home from work? Number 1, on the drive home, I drive in silence. I don't know what it is. Started doing this at my internship. Talked to some of my friends. They do the same thing. I drive home in silence. Having no music playing gives me a chance to wrap up any final thoughts I have. If I had a particularly hard client that day, like I did today, whatever loose thoughts are flying around my head, tie them up. I get to my driveway and I leave them in the car. Absolutely, those thoughts stay in the car. I'm in my driveway walking into my home. I'm at home now. I'm not my social work self. I'm just myself. And I think using the car as that middle point to transition has been really, really helpful for me. Some people say leave it at your front door. I can't do that. I need to leave it in the car. When I get to my driveway, put it in park, leave that behind, I'm greeted by my cat. I chit chat with my cat because she's HIPAA compliant. She doesn't know English. Yeah, well, yes, she does. But she can't repeat anything that I say, any confidential information. And as soon as I set my bags down at home, the first thing I do is change my clothes. I've got to get out of my scrubs. I'm not at the hospital anymore. I need comfy clothes. And that, again, helps me transition from one aspect of my life to the other. And I get to talk to my cat, and I get to cook dinner, and I get to watch YouTube. And that helps me transition. Next up, journaling. You knew it was going to be on the list. Everybody says to journal. But journaling is not helpful to me. In terms of the general journal your thoughts, journal your feelings, that doesn't work for me. When I was in grad school, my 1-year-long internship, I briefly have talked about it on this channel. So I was at a juvenile detention center. To this day, most amazing thing I've done, most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. And I am begging and pleading to go back there one day as a salaried employee. But while I had that internship, I was supervised by one of my wonderful grad school professors. And in supervision one week, I was talking about something particularly distressing to me. And she was like, have you tried process recordings? And I was like, no, journaling doesn't work for me. She said, no, process recordings. Okay, never heard of those before. She linked me to Columbia University. They have a whole PDF. I'll link it down below. But it's a guidebook on how to do process recordings as a social worker. The concept in the act of process recordings has been a game changer to me and is the main reason that I'm making this video, because I think every social worker needs to know process recordings. So briefly, I printed out the steps of how to do a process recording, and briefly, I'm going to summarize them. Like I said, I will link the entire PDF down below. But basically, number 1, you identify the client. No identifying stuff, but like 15-year-old, initials CR, I don't know. First time meeting or third appointment, whatever. We met in my office Tuesday at 4 p.m. You identify the situation. Then, step 2, your objectives. Today we were going to work on automatic negative thoughts. I don't know. The third part, game changer for me. A word-for-word description of what happened as well as you can recall it. Fourth part of this, any nonverbal interaction. So it really makes you stop and think about what was going on. The next part, your feelings and reactions to your client and the interview as it took place. Put in writing your unspoken thoughts and reactions as the interview is going on. So for example, like at this point, as the client is talking, I can feel myself becoming upset. As this client is talking, I feel a little uneasy and I can tell that they're angry and I feel fearful. Whatever your feeling is, being able to pinpoint that, game changer, I'm telling you. Then finally, you kind of summarize your impression, your analytical thinking about the entire interaction. And then finally, what are your future plans? Moving forward, what are you gonna do and change? And then what are you gonna bring to supervision? Like I said, I'm gonna link it down below because it completely changed my mindset on journaling, and like really truly processing a situation and processing my emotions, because the whole Dear Diary, today this happened didn't work for me, but this did. So if journaling doesn't work for you, I highly recommend trying this out. And then finally, we've made it toward the end of the video. Finally, my last recommendation for after work, outside of work, what can you do to process your secondary trauma and manage that compassion fatigue, is really, truly to speak to your colleagues, other people in the field who know what you're feeling. They understand it as you describe it. For me, I have a couple friends that I went through my grad school program with. We all got our MSWs together, and we're all on the same path as new grads, new to the workforce, trying to navigate what does being a social worker look like for me. Of course, when you talk to your colleagues and your friends, you have to be HIPAA compliant. Remember patient confidentiality, no identifying information about the person, of course, but really being able to bounce ideas off of someone. How would you have responded to this client? Do you think that I responded appropriately? What would you have done instead? Or this is what my client is presenting with. Like, how would you go about this? How would you go about speaking with this client? So really having someone to bounce ideas off of and process things with. Hear the phrase, it takes a village when you're raising kids, but I really think it takes a village also to be in a helping profession. Who knows the resources? Who has connections to this person? Who can I bounce ideas off of? Who's worked in this system before? Who's worked at this macro level before? Really building relationships and utilizing those relationships. Okay, so we have finally made it to the end of the video. I tried to be as concise and short-winded as possible, but I think that this is a very important topic. Maybe this video is too brief. Maybe you still have questions. I would love to hear what does work for you. I'd love to hear how you manage your secondary trauma and what you do to process your day and how you avoid compassion fatigue. So if you are a social worker, maybe you're not, maybe you're in another helping profession, but this video was helpful to you, please sound off in the comments. Let me know what your suggestions are, what works for you, what you think about my list. So on that, I will end the video. I cannot wait to read your comments and hear your responses. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Being a social worker is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'm really excited to start this platform and have a space to talk about it.